I'll open the meeting with the acknowledgement of country. Richmond Valley Council recognises the people of the Bundjalung Nations as custodians and traditional owners of this land, and we value and appreciate the continuing culture, connections to lands, their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region in the past, present and future. Mr General Manager, you could read the prayer, please.
Dear Lord, we meet to serve our Richmond Valley community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly, and to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognise our responsibility to the past and the future, and the rights and needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here today. May we act wisely and well. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Public access, I believe there's no requests.
No requests.
Apologies, we have a full house. Mayoral minute, councillors, 5.1 on page 6, I will move that.
Second, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey. Councillors, this is very explanatory. I moved a mayoral minute previously requesting that the courthouse be reinstated as soon as possible. Our local member, Richie Williamson, took up the charge and addressed the Parliament, and it has now been reopened, and it was good to see that some things happening down here, maybe sometimes for the wrong cause, but other times courts also have some good outcomes. So I'd ask you to support that recommendation, that we thank the member for Clarence, Richie Williamson, and also the Attorney General, the Honourable Michael Daly, for that reopening occurring. Any other speakers? Put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Page 7, 6.1, confirmation minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 16th of April. For the accuracy of the minutes, Councillor Morrissey. Seconder, Councillor Cornish. Does everyone agree with the accuracy? Put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. Over the page to page 8, matters arising out of the minutes. Has any councillor got anything arising?
Quick question on, I don't know what page it is, but Councillor McMillan's notice of motion about the Korakai Cenotar on the street down there for Anzac Day. Was it prettied up and was everybody happy?
Councillor McMillan, it was your notice motion.
Thank you, Robert. Yes, it did look good. It was it did come up quite nicely. Unfortunately, the park actually, the children's playground still didn't quite come to the grade, but it was a good event at the end of the day. So thank you.
I attended that service, and actually we marched together. And yeah, I thought the park and everything looked pretty good, I thought, and the cenotaph, as usual, looked a picture like all of they do in the council area. So thank you to the staff for achieving that. Thank you.
Just to comment on that playground, I understand, I think the new shade sail has been installed and the playground equipment's ordered, so I'd need to check on where that's up to, but there is improvements coming for that playground.
Thank you. Any other items? Declarations of interest. Has any council got a declaration of interest? Councillor Humphries.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have 19.1 and 19.2, both non-pecuniary and non-significant. In 19.1, I'm a committee member of Casino Zone Wireless. In 19.2, committee member of Casino Zone Wireless and organising committee of the muster. Also, I'm the Lions lady to the president of the Casino Lions Club. If they could just be noted. Thanks.
Any other councillors? Mr General Manager, has any staff member have a declaration?
Yes, I've got one in the matter of item 17.1, which is the title of the insurance update. As I am a board member of Civic Risk Mutual, which I'm I'm able to do that, given that I'm a member of council, board members of the mutual are councillors, general managers and directors. So it's a non-pecuniary and insignificant conflict.
Thank you. Petitions, nil. Notice of motions, nil. We go page 9. Mayor's report. I'll move that. Could I get a second?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey, is there any questions out of that report?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. On the 12th of April, the Flavour Fest celebration at Casino Drill Hall. I just have a comment or an overview of that.
Yeah,
function.
this was a new event to our council area, and it had some limited funding, and it was put on there on a Friday night. I think it was the last Friday of that school term, and it was outstanding. The people came, the families. It was just good to see the children there. There was food, bands, music. I don't know what they call those guns, the laser guns and all that, and the children had a great time. Wonderful to see the families out there enjoying themselves. I know Councillor Cornish and family and some other friends were there, and it was just a wonderful night in a beautiful setting, and hopefully council can attract more funding if a couple of more or a few of those could be held every 3 or 4 months. It was a really great event. People responded.
Thank you. And on the 30th of April, housing roundtable discussions in Wollumbar. Was anything of value for Richmond Valley?
Yeah, Director Jones and I attended that, and I thought it was a very beneficial visit. We first spoke with the Minister about our needs. She's also the Minister of Water, and we spoke to her, and she gave us a good hearing, and I'll refer to a bit more of that later on in one of our reports. But it was beneficial to go up there. And then the housing forum, there was a lot of other mayors and those housing service providers and politicians, and it was just like a meeting where questions and answer, and she addressed, and a couple of other. I actually spoke. My line was that they talk about affordable housing all the time, and they have for the last forever. And you're never going to get affordable housing on the coast because of the land values. So they need to start looking in land like they have at Bow Desert and like they have at Junction Hill. And the people can't afford there, so they move inland. They can still transit to work. There's people living at Junction Hill that actually work in Coffs Harbour. People at Bow Desert, they work on the Gold Coast, they work in Brisbane. And I believe that if we can get this housing development between Casino and Kyogle, people will move here, still work in Lismore, some will work in Ballina, but it gives a young family an opportunity to get into the housing market early. What they found at Junction Hill was a lot of people moved there for a short term, few years, have a family, the price of the houses increase, it gives them a bit of equity in their home, and they move back to the coast. Well, they're not moving. They settle in those communities, children are going to school, and they become residents of Grafton. And I believe that can happen here. And that, as I said that day, the development's not only for Casino, it will also benefit Kyogle people, because it's nearly halfway between. Well, not quite, but yeah, so, there's a future there, and that was my message to them. And believe it or not, I got a call next day from another general manager who lives on the coast, and he said that he sees that opportunity, and that's the only way we're going to achieve affordable housing in our area. So that was my message on behalf of Richmond Valley Council.
Thank you. One more. On the 3rd of May and other days, the Casino Cow Country Music Muster opening. Could I just have a comment on that, please?
Yeah, that was, besides the actual opening, that was the first event to be held, and the centre received rave reviews from the people that were there. There was 60 or 70 people come in caravans, and they were just are in all of it. And I had personal friends that came, and they had other friends from Dorrigo, and they really enjoyed it, and they just thought, what a fantastic venue. Feedback, I spoke to a few of the artists, and some of these are award-winning artists in Australia, and they travel around going to all these country music festivals, and they just said it's one of the best venues they've been to, and they hope to be invited so they can come back next year. So it was a real success. It would have been nice to have a few more local people turn up, but the artists were outstanding, and it was a really good lineup, and those people that didn't go, they missed out on a real good show. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. That's all for now.
Thank you. Any other?
I got one for you. On the, where are we at here? The Reconstruction Commission meeting on the 8th of May. Anything come out of it for Woodburn and Broadwater? Has there been any advancement with mitigation or what they intend to do with those towns?
That one was, they gave us some feedback on the plans of what they, but there's, with the buybacks, just at present, they're not pursuing those. I think they're waiting for these place plans to get a bit more feedback out of those. Corokai, they're still talking about pod villages and things there, what they're going to do with those. Broadwater, just a little bit on the buybacks, but they're starting to now look at the resilient packages for house raising and internal fit-outs. But yeah, I'd expect very soon there'll be some more announcements coming out there. Yep. And we did talk to them also about casino, because as we know, this casino got hit bad also, so we asked them to follow that up, and also talk to them about hopefully some funding for the Fairy Hill estate, and there'll be an announcement coming very soon about some funding for that, hopefully. Any others? I'll put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. Delegates report. There's one delegates report there on page 10. The motion is, get a mover.
Move that way, thanks.
Councillor Humphries, I'll second that. Any questions? Put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. Over to page 14. Matters determined without debate. Has any councillor got any matters? I'll call 15.1, 15.2, 17.1, 17.4 and 17.5, please. So what do I need, Ange? What do I need a motion for? 15.2?
7 and 2 and 7 and 3.
That's it. All right, I need a motion for 17.2 and 17.3, please.
Move,
Could I get
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey,
Second.
Councillor Hayes. Put that motion. All those in favour? Thank you. So councillors are on page 15, 15.1. I'll move that. Could I get a seconder, please?
Second, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey. Councillors, as you know, these studies have been getting done, and there's been a lot of consultation, as the report says. But I'll ask a question in a minute about councillors partnered on the bottom of page 15, that councillors partnered with the New South Wales Reconstruction Authority to pilot a combined approach to phase planning and adaptation planning in this project. I'll just ask in a second, I'll get an answer for that, about what that partnership is. And I note there that on page 17 that should council endorse the draft plans for public exhibition, it is proposed to exhibit them from the 24th of May, 23rd of June, being 30 days. Community information sessions will be conducted on Tuesday, 11th of June at Woodburn, and Wednesday, 12th of June at Broadwater, Corrocoy and Evans Head. So that will be advertised that we're doing those. And okay, so if I can get those two answers, please, if you don't mind, thanks.
I'm happy for Director Jones to comment on that.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So when we embarked on this place plan project for the Mid-Richmond, it was post-flood, and we felt there was a great opportunity to look at an adaptation piece, given those Mid-Richmond communities are often impacted by floods. So the Reconstruction Authority actually paid for 50% of the work that has been done by our consultants. So we're looking at the maintain, modify and transform method or model that the CSIRO use. And we are looking at how we can be more resilient and adaptive with our planning for our future growth and livability of our Mid-Richmond plan. So we're very fortunate to have that 50% funding to increase the scope of these place plans to include the adaptation piece.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Just have a question through you, Mr Mayor. The report makes comment of the pilot and the combined approach. Does council know of has anybody else, any other councillors taken this approach? Have they taken this up to see the advantage of this?
I don't know. I don't know.
So they identified us because we were doing these place plans. So that's where we were identified that as we're doing these, and the requirement from the Reconstruction Authority is to do what they're calling disaster adaptation plans. It's part of the state disaster recovery plan that's been released. So this is a pilot. We're doing it in partnership with them, and as we are learning lessons as we go through this, I'm sure they are as well, and then they will take those learnings to how they, I suppose, roll this out into other local government areas. So as far as we're aware, yeah, I mean, it was identified as a pilot, so that's why it's been important for us to push ahead in line with the project plan to get it completed, so that others can then benefit from the process, and you know what we did and what we got right, what we might get wrong, so that we can and they can use it to inform what they do next.
Thank you. I thought that was the case, and I would just like to recognise what an incredible initiative it is. And I would also like to just make a couple of comments. I support the plans, of course, being placed on public exhibition, but the establishment of these plans gives council a valuable insight and a new resource to achieve the aims as listed in the report. Our towns and villages within the Mid-Richmond are unique, and this set of plans also recognises that and reflects that. I note that it's a good use of time for council to continue to seek clarification with the Reconstruction Authority on the future directions for the Resilience Home program during the exhibition period, and respectful to those who've already given input that Woodburn's plan has been developed based on the expectations that community's preference is to remain in place and to build long-term resilience to the future flood events. Following the review of the submissions, the next step, as reported, is to consider adoption of the plans, and ensuring that adoption will ensure that the actions will be recognised in our community strategic plans and our local strategic planning statement. And ultimately, the main goal is that that detail will become part of the budgetary and our funding processes. So I really look forward to seeing what else, what other input we have during exhibition period, and bring those back to council. Thank you.
Councillor
Just
Hay.
a question based around the recommendation. We're endorsing Corrocoy's draft plan. We're adopting it, and then we're putting the other ones out on public exhibition. That's correct?
No, it's endorsing them all to go out for public consultation
30 days.
for 30 days. Yeah, so it's just that it's written as two separate
Okay, so we're not
Two
adopting the
separate plans.
Coraki
No.
one tonight?
No,
Okay,
no,
thank
no,
you.
no. All you're doing is endorsing that we now
Endorsing
go
it.
through a public consultation process for the plans, and then that will come back following consideration of submissions. The aim is for the July meeting for adoption of those plans.
Just another comment there. The Mayor talked there earlier about, pushing the population west. There's nothing in there in those place plans to suggest that for Broadwater and Woodburn. They're pushing Broadwater and Woodburn for their population expansion, everything towards Evans Head, which is already full, and we're having issues there already, and talking about rezonings and stuff at Evans Head and densities and all that stuff. There's nothing in there. They haven't looked at anything or considered anything to go west to Woodburn and go west of Broadwater into the higher areas. They haven't looked very hard. I know we get the answer that there's nothing available. I don't believe that. I think there's land out there that can be rezoned to push the population of those towns at a cheaper rate for their housing to the west, rather than push them towards the coast. And these plans just push them, both those towns, everything associated with them, their food supply, their everyday use is to go to Evans Head. They do suggest in there that they're linked to Ballina more than they are linked to Casino. So if they'll push west, they become more linked to Casino than they are to a town that's out of our council area. I think that's something that needs looking at in all those plans. And the other thing that stands out in there, the Evans Head one, they talk about redeveloping the library. They talk about relocating the ambulance station. We've just spent money there. And across all those plans, there's nothing in there that this council hasn't already started to do or intends to do in the future. The only grey bits in them are related to the recovery from the flood, and it's all about housing after the flood and lack of it. So I don't know. They didn't really tell me anything, those place plans, that we didn't already know. I'm happy for them to see them go out in exhibition and see what comes back in. We might get enlightened, but I really don't think there's much in there.
The housing down in those lower areas, a lot of it's flood prone, and as you know, we've seen with some subdivisions now, one was on a hill, and the gateway, they wouldn't allow it because of the flood access. So you could try to rezone, but then you've also got to have the landowner and the proponent willing to go down that path. And because it's isolated blocks, a lot of them, if they're not at Riley's Hill or Woodburn or Broadwater or Coraki, then if it's out of that area, they can only be big blocks because you can't sewer them. So, and the water, they're like a rural residential. So. And
look, not griping, but we can manage to find a lot of land west of Casino that's going to have a stage one of 1,600 homes. It'll be isolated. There's no difference. We just haven't looked hard enough, or the Reconstruction Commission haven't looked hard enough, or the state government. But it's got to be there.
Yeah, well, I think it's not that long ago we did our urban growth management strategy, which consolidated all of our residential release strategies, and through that process, we looked at options, and it also needs to be part of the state government's processes. And there are some areas where we might think that you can develop land, they won't let us. The one at Riley's Hill that the Mayor mentioned is a classic example. You've got about 35 lots on a hill, doesn't get flooded, but it won't get through a gateway because it doesn't have adequate evacuation routes. And we all know that what happened in 2022, everyone was isolated. So that patch would have been isolated, but they would have been above the floodwaters. But there's these requirements that you need to be able to get out of there within, how many hours is it?
Not quite sure. We
Not
haven't
many,
got it. We haven't got 8 hours.
Yeah,
something
that's
like
what I
that.
mean. So you're not, once you're isolated for 8 hours, then potentially you can't develop on that land. I mean, seriously? But there's some of the things that, we're up against. And with this piece of work, and I don't necessarily disagree with you about, there's probably not much in there that we haven't thought about, but I'm not sure what else we do, and I suppose let's get them out to the community, and hopefully we get some ideas, some creativity and some support for other options. But it is very constrained in that neighbourhood because of floodplain, national parks and constraints. So it's not an easy space, whereas the area, the development, to the northwest of Casino is high and dry and is in and has been in a residential lease strategy for some time. So it has, that's why it's been, and it's got a motivated developer, and that helps as well.
Director Jones.
All those plans talk about population growth, and they talk about possible growth in Broadwater, Woodburn, Evans Head, and then Coraki comes along, which has got a little bit of high land, and they talk of basically a nil population growth there, for all different reasons. And look, I'd really like, if anybody that has read this can tell me what's in those plans that we don't already know about. Anything that's fresh, that's new, that's an opportunity. There's nothing that I can find.
Well, I can, at the next meeting, you can have your councillor, you can put what you think, and that can be looked at. So.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you.
But I think having a plan is important to actually document it and have a place plan, because then that can then feed into your LEP processes and other things, your budgets, but also in support from other levels of government. So, I think the plan's important. Plans that, often a plan will incorporate a lot of things that we already do, but having it so that it lines up with your strategic plans and other things places you well, as you all know, to you get your plans, then you get to the next level, you get master plans, then you get your business case, then you get the money. And so it's important we understand we're building that platform as we have in a lot of other areas of our business.
Just to finish, like Councillor Humphrey's, overall view of where it's going and where it's going to end up is good. And I think these place plans have got to be in place, and hopefully now when they go out to the community that there's some things added that we haven't picked up on, and hopefully part of that is opportunities for housing closer to Woodburn and Broadwater, and preferably west. Yeah. Thank you.
Did you want to speak?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I just wanted to point out that whilst there's probably not many parcels of land that we don't already know about, because that was the urban growth management strategy for the whole Shire, the Casino Place Plan was presented to Council last year in April. So this is building on that strategic land use planning work that we've already sort of know from the urban growth management strategy. But the place plans also look at civic pride improvements and opportunities for events and connectivity of communities and livability and all those strategic objectives that we'd like to achieve for our communities also. So not only it's the land, but it's to make those places good for people to live. And that's what the place plans sort of drill a little bit further down into and address. So whilst there is potentially limited opportunities in the mid-Richmond for large expanses of residential land to be developed because of the constraints, there is opportunities for us to improve our towns and villages for our community.
Any other speakers? I'll just finish with a question. We mentioned a couple of times now that Riley's Hill subdivision that was couldn't get through the gateway process. We did appeal that, or I know you and I had some talks with some high-ranking politicians and some government departments. Where's that up to? Is there any more?
Not at this point. I think what we're doing and what we're going to do is watch the current Land and Environment Court challenge for the 60-lot residential subdivision on Riley's Hill Road. The outcome of that will be interesting. So I think we'll wait for that to see if there's anything comes from that that's can inform what our options are to support. And at the end of the day, it is the developer that needs to make those sorts of decisions around that, the other Riley's Hill subdivision. So that I think is a prudent approach to see what happens with it, and it's in that Land Environment Court at the moment process.
Okay.
See what happens as to whether that other option is influenced in some way by the outcomes.
Thank you. That closes the debate. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried. 15.2. Page 18. I'll move that motion. A seconder, please. Councillor McGillen. Councillors, this report is most probably one of the most important reports that will come to this council. It covers water and sewerage, and I'll just read a couple of paragraphs out of. Over the past 4 years, council has been exploring key directions for future water supply and sewerage management to ensure it can meet the needs of the Richmond Valley's growing community. The draft Richmond Valley Water and Live 2050 strategy brings these directions together to deliver more than $200 million in essential water and sewerage infrastructure over the next 25 years. The draft Richmond Valley Water for Life 2050 strategy brings these key directions together and sets a path to deliver the essential water and sewerage infrastructure that the community will need over the next 25 years. More than half the planned capital expenditure will be required in the next 5 years as council rolls out major projects such as the casino STP replacement, Evans Head STP Stage 2, and the casino water treatment plant upgrade and water security works, as well as the Rapville sewerage scheme. So this plan, going forward, as I said, it covers Rapville, Corrokai, Evans Head, which also services Woodburn and Riley's Hill, and casino. So really the future of the Richmond Valley lays in this report. If we don't do these upgrades over the coming years and finding the finance to do those, we just can't expand, we can't grow, we can't create jobs. So we really need this to happen. I believe it'll go out to the community for 28 days for exhibition. But I'd just like to say that the work that's gone into this over those last 4 years has been enormous. And that 28 days, we'll get that feedback and then hopefully it'll come back for adoption and we can start focusing on where we go into the future. The General Manager and I went to Sydney and spoke with the Premier, and we've also Minister Jackson, as I said earlier, as the Minister for Water. We made them fully aware of what we need into the future. And I also, as I said, spoke to the Minister up at Moolumbar. But this is vital assets for our community, and it needs to happen, and it comes at an enormous cost. Any other speakers? Councillor Humphries.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report again is an example of how Council does consolidate the information that it has, and an example being as this one talks about the importance of water and sewer for new housing and new jobs and how they feed off each other, that you need one to have the other. And again, it also has a section there connecting this strategy to the IP&R. It's designed to be connected to it, and it'll help, again, inform the community strategic plans. So it is important that Council has begun to link everything together. I remember a number of years ago, I'd be reading a report and I'd go to my paperwork and I'd pull out 3 or 4 or sometimes more strategies to link them all together. And I think what we're doing here is worthwhile. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Councillor Hayes.
Just a question on the 1,600 new homes out at Ferry Hill. Like 4 years ago, you're saying it was in our strategy for development, that area of land. It's always been included, and now it's in there, and it's up there to get over the line, and this water strategy to supply sewer and water out there is part of that overall plan. What happens if that doesn't go ahead, and how much does that going ahead rely on the Reconstruction Authority and some funding to get to continue that out that way?
A lot will rely on government funding for sewer and water upgrades, as does every council across New South Wales. It's not only this council. I would think if it doesn't go ahead, council will have to reassess where we go with our water and sewer. But in saying that, the main amount of money that needs to be spent is in two spots: Evans Head and Casino. Evans had their first, when it was constructed, it was a massive amount of money at the time, but stage 2 has to be implemented there, otherwise Evans Head just stops. Before that sewer system was built, there was calls by some of the communities down there to stop development. They didn't want any development. And we kept going with that system, and then we built a new one. So that's allowed Evans Head to keep going. Stage 2 needs to be done. With Casino, that plant there now is almost 90 years old. So it's come to its use-by date. It's still being nursed along. It's covering all its EPA requirements and doing all that, but sooner or later it has to happen, as will, in the future, Korakai. So the bulk of the money has to be spent, most probably 10 to 15 million to get the water and sewer out there. The rest of that 200 has to be spent internally. So, I don't know if I've answered that.
Just as far as the Casino STP project goes, we don't have a choice, and we're pushing hard with the project team and supporting consultants to get that progressed promptly. That's going well. We actually had a workshop last week with the New South Wales government regulators, and the consensus there is that it's time for a new STP. So there was no resistance to that push from us to build a new one. So that was positive. So we've engaged with the regulators. We're doing a lot of work's going into getting that well progressed. And again, the idea there, or the drive there, is to have it as shovel ready as we can, so we're in a better position to secure the funding. And the other message we've had back is the fact that we have put $20 million into our forward long-term financial plan as our contribution to making that happen. And there's a bit of surprise at times at the fact that we've done that, because it's not always the case that local government is good at asking for the whole amount of money, but in this case we're pretty much pitching it as a third. If we can do 20, we get 20 off state and fed or each. We're pretty close. So that's what we're pushing for there. The infrastructure supporting the Ferry Hill development, we are again pushing hard there under the Resilient Lands program, as you know, to be well positioned to secure that supporting funding, which obviously then makes it a more likely and more positive proposition for that developer. So again, I suppose our job is as facilitators, we're doing a lot of work to position ourselves as best we can, so that governments can make those decisions to support us to get on with the job.
And just to support the General Manager, when Director Jones and I went up to meet Minister Jackson at Wollongbar, we made those points and we gave her some handouts. We said, look, we're willing to throw 20 million at that. And she sat straight up, didn't she? And she said, so you've got money to go with it? Yeah. She said, usually we get local government to come and us, and it's run down, it's affecting the environment. They've got no plans. I said, well, we're looking for $5 million to get those plans done, so we've got a shovel ready. And she was she was very, very happy and pleased. And I think that will go a long way in the future to getting some funding. and their offsiders were taking notes and all that. So yeah, and so I think we've got the right plan to go forward, and every cent we can get from the government, it helps the ratepayers with their rates increases, and it's spread right across the whole council area, as was the 20 odd years ago, whenever it was, the Evans Head was done. The casino community money went towards paying for that, and the whole area will go towards here, and when Coracai is done, the whole money will go. And that's why we have an even rate base on sewer and water. Because in those days, if Evans Head had to be done, the Evans Head community just couldn't afford if you had a segregated rate. So it's the best way. Any other speakers? I'll put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. I think we're on to 16. There's no, on page 21, projects and business development, nil. And then I think we go to 17.4, is that correct? 17.1, sorry. Where did that go? Yep. I'll move that.
Second.
Councillor Cornish. Councillors, as you know, we reviewed our insurance services years ago, and it was most probably a very, very smart and wise decision to do it. And I'll just read a couple of those paragraphs again, because they highlight how this has benefited our community. As a result of the major flood event in February 2022, the Mutual paid out the full flood cover limit of $5 million, compared to $2 million payout for neighbouring flood-affected councils are reported to have received for the other local government mutual within the market. In addition, council continues to provide with ongoing flood cover for future flooding events. Together, we're receiving competitive insurance rates. Council receives a number of other benefits under the contract. So I've got two questions there to start with. Mr. General Manager, above where it says that Council continue to provide ongoing flood cover, do other councils have that, or is it continue to, because I know some were regularly get inundated?
Look, obviously, I'm not in a position to comment on councils that are covered by the other mutual, but obviously, you know, when you get around the sector, you talk to people, I understand that it's difficult, and I'm sure it has been difficult for Civic Risk as well when they're going through that annual process. But we have been well positioned to continue to get that flood cover. Yeah, my understanding, it has been difficult with the other mutual, but I'm not in a position to be conclusive on that. The insurance market has been hard, obviously, and has been hardening, and it's obviously got very hard following the floods. So it's certainly a challenging, challenging market.
And on the benefits under the contract, do we take advantage of that?
Yeah, we certainly do. I think we're actually in the process of setting up the next visit. During visit, they obviously give us updates on a range of things, the CEO visits, but also they run some training sessions. The claims team come and select a couple of different areas of our business that would be benefit to get some training on. So that will be coming up. I think it's around mid-June. So yeah, they're certainly very active and supportive and very efficient at claims and supporting us where they occur.
And I noticed down the bottom of the page there's a council was awarded an Excellent in Risk Management Award for its flood response 2022. The award included a prize of $2,000 that council is able to put forward to risk management initiative of its choice. What kind of initiative would you identify with that?
I'm not sure what we've put the $2,000 towards at this stage. No. So I think we may not have actually made that decision. So
Okay, still looking at.
yeah.
Okay, well, it's good that we got an award and of $2,000 to go towards helping that risk. But the biggie for me is on page 23, and it most probably what most community members would understand and be happy with. The council reported to the community in December 22 that savings on premiums, together with the flood payout, have led to financial benefits estimated in excess of $4.4 million since 2017-2018. Saving on insurance premiums enable council to provide additional services and infrastructure support to the community. I just think it's wonderful to see the benefits our ratepayers are receiving from council's decision to review its insurance services, especially after the devastating natural disasters we have endured. And it's a really positive outcome for everyone. At this time, when we need as many dollars as we can get, it's just to have that extra 4.4 million after we've been going through disaster after disaster after disaster. So congratulations everyone who was involved in bringing that recommendation to council. Any other speakers?
Yeah, I think it's just pulled up a little bit short there. The next paragraph says if we stayed where we were, we'd be paying nearly $1.4 million in premiums. We've just paid $930 for the same thing. Is that correct?
Look, that's based on the gap at the time when we shifted, so it's an assumption, but that gap was there, and there was a strong history of CPI increases on our premiums, which was obviously a key factor in why the class action was taken by over 20 councils against JLT, was that there was a strong view that premiums were too high, and so that not necessarily, it's based on an assumption, and that's what that graph shows. That if that that trend continued, but I would suggest that as a result of the class action and the focus that there has been on insurance premiums across local government, that I'd certainly hope that all councils in New South Wales are actually getting advantage of cheaper premiums across the board. So that is an assumption. So, but that I think it's just a figure of interest that if we didn't do something about it, potentially we would have paid, we'd be paying $3 million more. So maybe it's not. Could have been paying $3 million more if we hadn't made that call.
Any other speakers?
Mr Mayor, if I could just have a quick comment on the 28 recommendations under the CRIP and what that looks like and what that time frame might be for that prioritisation of those 28 recommendations.
Through Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Humphries. We're currently considering the 28 recommendations and prioritising them. So Council is working in conjunction with our ARIC, our Audit Risk and Improvement Committee, to prioritise the actions. So some of the things that we will be doing as part of that, we'll be looking at our strategic risk registers and looking at our risk management programs and building risk capabilities within our organisation. So that's a 3-year program that we will negotiate, starting with our top priorities and moving forward, so that hopefully by the next CRIP review we will achieve a higher rating for our risk management.
Thank you very much.
Any other speakers? Put their motion in. All those in favour? Carried. 17.4. Councillors, we have a presentation for this, please.
Thank you. So in preparing our 10-year budget, some of the key focuses this year were ensuring that we're presenting a budget that accurately reflects Council's current financial position into the future, ensuring we're achieving an operating surplus in the long term, and that will just enable us to be financially sustainable into the future, borrow for key infrastructure projects, as we discussed earlier in relation to the casino sewer treatment plant, and maintain our current assets and fund the future replacement of those assets. Ensuring we have a cash surplus, which will allow us to fund any ad hoc projects throughout the year, and ensuring we have a capital works program that's achievable. Some of the key assumptions: we have a 4.6% rate peg for next year. We are proposing a 0% increase to waste annual charges, both domestic and non-domestic, followed by 3% thereafter. A 7.5% increase for water and sewer annual charges in the first year, followed by 5%, and 3% for other fees and charges. In expenditure, we've got a 3.5% salary increase next year, and that's in line with the local government award. 5% for electricity, 2.5% for materials and contracts, 10% for insurance, and 2.5% for all other expenses. Summary of the result for 24-25, we've got 75 million in operating revenue, 77 million in operating expenditure, which gives us an operating result before capital grants and contributions of $2.3 million loss. We have capital grants and contributions of $34.8 million, which brings the operating result from continuing operations to $32.5 million. We have a capital works program proposed at the moment of 57 million, and that will likely change following the March review, which is currently underway as well. And our unrestricted cash surplus is 252,000. The draft capital works program, so these are just some of the major projects we've got for next year. We've got $7.8 million for Norton's Gap Road landslip, 17.85 for the Tatham Bridges replacement, 3.3 million for the betterment of the casino footbridge, 3.5 million in essential public asset reconstruction works on our road network, and that will further increase as we receive approvals. Various infrastructure renewals for water supplies of 3.6 million, the year one of the casino STP augmentation of 3.6, and some other sewer infrastructure renewals at pump stations and relining for 3.8 million. Illawong Lane drainage of 1.4 and some plant purchases for 3.8 million.
Thank you. Any questions? No, thank you. Oh, you'll wait until the, yep, okay, thank you for the next item. Yep, thank you. Councillors, I have got a change to the recommendation, and it reads that the draft operational plan 24-25, including draft financial estimates 24-28, draft revenue policy 24-25, and draft long-term financial plan 24-20 to 34 be placed on public exhibition for a period of 28 days with the following amendments. The proposed increase to water annual charges be amended to increase water access charges by 5% instead of the proposed 7.5 increase as shown in the report. Part 2, the draft documents be brought back to Council following consideration of any submissions received for final adoption at the meeting of Council on 25th of June 24. What that says is instead of it being 7.5 for the, that is over on page 32, it will be 5% for the water because the rest of the other years will be 5. I just think we have some increases in here, and I'd like to see that just come to 5%. The sewerage, as we've heard, needs to stay at 7.5 because we have to spend a lot of money there, but I think the water can get through just staying at the 5%. So if I can get a second for that.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Humphries. Councillors, there is some hefty increases in here. One is the sewer is going up 7.5, usually goes up to 5. But as we've heard tonight, when you've got all those works coming forward, that needs to occur. Otherwise, we just can't service the whole area in the future for sewer. The water, the charge there for 5%, but the water usage will still stay at 7.5, and people can control the use of water. This is only the access charge. So if you want to, cut your water use, which we're encouraging everyone to, statewide and at Rouse and here, people need to be more aware of some of the water, but I still see some places around that they're just willing to pay and use it at will. The other use that's gone up is the cemeteries, and as the report says, it has to go because of the government regulatory recently introduced, and that leads to further charges, and we have to abide by those rules and regulations. But there is good news. The waste will not be going up, and I think that's because council done the hard work to build a cell 6, and that'll take our community ahead for 10 to 15 years with that cell. And I know by talking to other mayors that they would like to be some of them would like to be in the position we are, because their waste disposal facilities are coming to their end of life, and there's no room for expansion. And so we've tidied up that, and as I said before, that will be maybe not next council, but the council after will have to make some decisions where they go with that. I'd like at the next meeting, Mr. General Manager, if we could get a report when it comes back in the June meeting that includes the comparisons of our council with other councils around our area, in our region, because I think that gives you a guide of where we sit on every water, sewer, waste, the general rate, because I wouldn't like to think we were the highest rating council in our area. That's not a good look. But then you still have to have a rate base and charges that you can supply your community with the services they require. So if we can get that at the next meeting. The big increase has been the cemeteries and crematorium charges, but bear in mind every other council will have those too. And it's a bit early now to try to get those figures because we have to wait until the other councils adopt their fees and charges going forward. So if we could get that, that'd be good. And I don't see anything in here about the signs that I'm getting a lot of feedback now, positive feedback about the new signs going into the villages and towns where they've started. Will they carry over into 2020, the next budget, or they'll be done before the end of the...
They'll be rolled out this financial year, hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks, subject to obviously wet weather and the contractor's availability, and also some of those signs, as you are aware, are on or adjacent to highways and motorways, so traffic control and other factors come into that. So the aim is to have it done, within the next 2 to 3 weeks, but definitely by the end of the financial year.
I know there was a lot of community from the Indigenous sector wanted those. We got some grant funding from them. So could we get a report back just to the next meeting to, just even if it's a matter of information, just to the costs,
Yeah, we can
the
provide
costs and where the funding's come from and that, please?
Yep, we can provide a summary and outcome for those. Yep.
Okay. That's me. Has any other councillor?
I'd just like to ask a question regarding the water. With the, I know it's only a small amount that of the significance of the community, but with the pods and the temporary housing of, you know, the caravans and so forth, can they be regulated on how much water that they are allowed to use?
That's probably a question for the Reconstruction Authority, because they have the management for that pod village. They would be picking up the tab, and it's up to them to manage, you know, the arrangements within that site. So if there's a view about how that's being used, it's certainly something we can at least bring to their attention. I know the future of those pod villages is certainly something they're starting to turn their mind to, but it's not really something that we'd look to directly influence. It's a matter for them. We haven't had any issues that I'm aware of raised, but if there are some issues, then certainly happy to take that on board.
Any other questions? Councillor Hayes.
Just so that we're clear, okay, so you've suggested that we drop it to 5%, okay? So that's just the water, okay? The financial department of this council have done their homework based on 7.5. Is there a reason why it's 7.5, and is there a reason why we can just drop it back to 5% if we wish? And if we can drop the water back, what about all the other ones?
Well, I've dropped the water back because I believe the water fund can carry it, and I've had talks.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm getting at. Have you had
No,
talks?
I've had talks with them,
financial talks,
and I just think that our community is getting hit with the sewer. They'll still have to. It'll still be a 7.5 on the usage, but I think wherever we can give them a bit of relief, we need to. The cemetery one, I know we don't use that every day, but when we have to, it's an emotional time for people, and sometimes comes at a cost where people haven't, you know, you don't budget for a funeral. Some do have an insurance, others don't. So I just try to lighten the load on our community if possible. But Mr General Manager, you might want to, I did receive some figures for it.
Yeah, look, we've ran some different scenarios, and look, at the end of the day, the water fund is pretty tight. It is in surplus. I think the differing scenarios range. I think this scenario was around 100,000 surplus. The difference between this scenario and what we proposed was $29,000. Right, so from a totality perspective, it's a 29 grand difference, around 29, and I think we can handle it. Obviously, the principle here is that, you know, everyone has to have access, so we've kept it at 5%, which is what this council's done each year for, I think, most of the time I've been here, and the consumption is something that everyone can influence how much you consume. And so people need to cut that back a bit to save some dollars. There's ways for them to do that. Just on the cemeteries, which I think is an important thing that we will bring back to you, is the comparison of what it costs to bury in the Richmond Valley compared to what it costs in other places. It's significantly more affordable here, but some of these new requirements will require us to do additional things to manage our cemeteries. So obviously when you have to do more things, you need to be able to fund it. So that's why we've needed to put that amount up, and we don't, you know, our cemeteries are cheap in comparison. So I think the points come where we, you know, if we want to continue to maintain our cemeteries at a really good standard, you've got to have the funds to do that.
Yeah, so just on the water, $29,000 is the difference between the 7.5 and the 5?
I think that's correct, isn't it, Harley, around that?
49. 49,000.
Sorry, 49, is it?
49,000.
Or even 49,000. If we go back to item, what's it called, 17.2, where there's a review of the debt recovery policy, in there, there's a good scope there to get a lot more money for our water anyway, and it looks like it's working, so it's going to cover it. So
I did look at a no increase and just leave the one at 7.5, but we've been 5 all the time, and I think we can afford to leave it at 5. I really do.
I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Yep. Any other speakers? Put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. And 17.5, we have another presentation, please.
So for the quarterly budget review statement for the quarter ended 31 March 2024, the current budget summary, we've got proposed changes for operating income of $337,000 coming off the income to bring it down to $74 million. We've got a $5 million increase to capital grants and contributions to bring the total capital grants and contributions up to $40 million, with total income from continuing operations projected to be $114 million. Expenses are decreasing by $1.8 million down to $75.8 million, with our operating result projected to be $38.7 million. Our total capital works program is increasing slightly by $1.3 million up to $72 million, and our unrestricted cash result will remain unchanged at $212,000. The major changes for our operating income and expenditure, as discussed in the report, a decrease in operating income for the NRLX of $2.6 million and $716,000 in operating expenditure, and that's due to the change in operating structure. We've also seen an increase in capital grants and contributions of $1.2 million due to council being successful with a grant towards the upgrade of the effluent management system. Under financial services, we've had an increase of $2.3 million, and that's with interest revenues due to higher rates of return in the economy. And a $3.3 million increase in capital expenditure in line with our essential public asset reconstruction works on Council's road network. Overall, the major changes during this quarterly review are largely as a result of grant funding and a review of our capital works program. There's still a risk that delivery of the $72 million program may be impacted by the availability of contractors and wet weather, but that'll be continually monitored for the next month and reported back and adjusted accordingly. Overall, Council's projected financial position at year end remains satisfactory.
Any questions? No? Thank you very much for your presentation. We have a recommendation, councillors, on page 35. I'll move it. Can I get a second? Councillor Morrissey. Council, it's pretty straightforward, but I do have a question to the General Manager, and it's page 36. A new tripartite, is that correct, agreement between Transport New South Wales and New South Wales Regional Authority and Council. This new agreement enables funding to be provided to councils in advance of expenditure, with this initial payment being $20,000 of the estimated value of EPAs that were submitted to Transport New South Wales at that time. And it is expected to grow as council finalises its applications funding by the 30th of June 24. At the Leaders Forum the other day, look, we all understand we're getting that money now in front, which helps our because there was some councils just didn't have the money to do the work until they got that. They weren't getting, and it was leaving them their financial situation at the end of a financial pretty ordinary. So I'm glad to see that happening. But my question is, are our applications all up to date for the funding by the 30th of June? Because there was talk there, if you didn't have them in, you'd miss out.
Our short answer is yes. Yeah, no, we've been aiming for 30 to June for some time. That was pushed back. I think initially was, I don't know, keeps being pushed back, but they're not. This is it. So it's 30 June, and then Transport New South Wales have until 31 December to do their assessment process. So we will gradually get the approval. So as you said, at the point in time where we got this 20%, so it's 20% of about 50 million, which was what we'd had approved at that time. We expect that by 30 June we'll have submitted, it'll be close to $100 million worth. And then hopefully by 31 December, we will then know what's been approved and then get that forward payment of the 20%. It's certainly very helpful come end of financial year, and I think we learnt, I think we as in the region and Reconstruction Authority have learnt from last year where it was a real push and some problems at the end of financial year. So it's good to have this in place so that it doesn't impact on our end of financial year results and cash flows.
I know there was some mayors concerned about that 30th of June 24. So I'm pleased that we're ahead of the game, as usual, as we were with the insurance situation and also with the place plans as being a pilot program with that. So it just goes to show that this council is ahead or up with every other council in the area. So, thank you. Any other speakers? Put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Page 40, general business, nil. Matters for information on page 41. Item 19, can I get a mover, please?
Moves, Bear.
Second.
Who's second, sorry? Councillor Cornish. Councillor Humphries left the room. Has any councillor got any items they'd like to pull out of matters for information?
Just
Councillor
the-
Hayes?
Yeah, the rate relief letter we got returned
Yep.
after 8 months. Very political answer, I see. So,
Did that come out of a notice motion from you?
yeah, it did.
I thought it
Yeah,
did.
yeah, it took 8 months to get a reply by the look of it, but anyway, we got a reply that actually says nothing, and end of story.
Yeah. Any other councillors? Put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. I think we're on to item 20 on page 58. Questions on notice, nil. Questions for the next meeting in writing. Has any councillors got any questions? Oh, well, they didn't need a resolution anyway, so that's good. We're now on item 22. Matters referred to closed council. I need a motion to go into closed
Moves,
council. Councillor Morrissey, seconder.
Second.
Councillor Cornish. Mr General Manager, has there been any written representation made regarding this meeting going to closed council?
No, nothing received.
Is there any verbal representations from members of the public? No. Thank you all for coming. I'll put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. Councillors, you have a Good? We're back on. Mr General... Mr General Manager, could you read the resolutions of closed council, please?
Certainly, I'll let Director Zeller and Gator, I think, do those ones.
In the item 22.1, tender VP 400913, Country Lane Road Reconstruction, recommend that 1, council declines all tenders for tender VP 400913, Country Lane Road Reconstruction, due to all tenders being more than council's available budget. 2, the General Manager be authorised to negotiate and finalise the terms and conditions of any contract or agreement in line with the content of this report and the available budget, and affixing the seal of council where necessary. 3, council continues to seek further funding to deliver this project. 4, notes the outcomes of the negotiations to be reported to council for information at a future meeting.
In report 22.2, tender REG PRO 042425, supply and delivery of bulk water treatment chemicals, recommended that 1, council accepts 10 of the 11 recommendations from regional procurement for successful tenderers in REG PRO 04245, supply and delivery of bulk water treatment chemicals by panel source suppliers as outlined in this report. 2, enters into contractual arrangements with regional procurement for the period of 1 July 2024 to 30 June 2027 for supply of chemicals from successful tenderers in the 10 chemical categories identified in this report. 3, notes that the contract includes provision for a 12-month extension based on satisfactory supplier performance, which may take this through to 30 June 2028. 4, exercises its option under the contract arrangements to source magnesium hydroxide liquid from alternate suppliers under council's standard procurement procedures, noting that annual expenditure on this product is below the local government tendering threshold.
Thank you. That brings the meeting to an end. For those attending the Beef Week Fashion Parade tonight, enjoy, and those participating, don't let your high heels stumble. You see those models do on the TV. So that closes the meeting. Thank you.